Katan Sameach.
Last week was great. I liked it last week.
So I want to tell you now, right, that we're getting now to the most amazing part of the Torah, right? Jimmy always likes to talk about this part. So this should be his favorite. I'm supposing this should be his favorite part. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? We're talking about 10 Commandments, right?
Oh.
The 10 Commandments. Because what happened was last week we talked about Yitro and Amalek, right? And right after Yitro, the 10 Commandments were given. So why is that, by the way? What's the reason why? In the Parsha of Yitro, the 10 Commandments were given. The Torah was given on 10. Why in his Parsha? It's called Yitro. Why? I mean, this guy was a convert, for God's sakes, So why should it be, he's the most important guy in the Torah. He's the most important guy.
Moses' president.
Right, he was a convert, yeah.
You're talking about Jethro?
Jethro, yeah. So now, what's the reason why the 10 Commandments, the Torah, was given in the Parsha of Yitro? Why we give him such big honor like that, right? So the reason is because we know, right, that Kadosh Baruch Hu loves converts. He loves the converts, the ones who come to join Am Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu regards them very, very highly. He loves them. He protects them. Right? He gives them a lot of shelter, a lot of protection. Right? He gives them a special treatment. He regards them to be very, 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 very unique people. So therefore, right, since Yitro came with all his heart, now that he realized, right, that as we said, right, your God is the real God, right? You always say that, Mark, right? Your God is the real God.
Pharaoh.
Your Torah is the real Torah. Our Torah is the real Torah. So therefore, right, once Yitro realized that, once he worshipped all the other gods, all the other idols he worshipped, he tried every one of them, but he saw that they're all empty, vain, right, very worthless. So therefore, now he came to the realization. So therefore, since he came with a full heart to convert, so Kadosh Baruch Hu said, you know what, I'm going to honor you to give the Torah and your portion. To show how dear you are to me as a convert, one who converts to Judaism. This is considered to be something very great. So therefore, this is the reason why, right, it was put in his parsha, the giving of the Torah, to show how dear they are to Kadosh Baruch Hu, the converts.
So he didn't believe in Ishmael. Oh no, yes.
Well, what's there to believe in?
He said,
we believe that he's a bad boy. We believe that he's a bad boy.
But Jethro said that this is the mountain that is
right.
Is for these people, and Ishmael is for those people, but
so
it's the same mountain.
We're going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about the issue of Ishmael and all these things, right? So what happens is like this, right? That the Chazal tell us, we talked about this several months ago, but it's good to repeat it now because it's very relevant to our topic. The Chazal tell us, right, that before Kadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to Am Yisrael, he offered to all the other nations as well. How many nations are there altogether? 70, right? That's what they say. 70 nations. He offered to all of them. By the way, today, if you look in the United Nations, how many nations are there? It's about 140, actually. It's double.
198.
Well, whatever it is, right? Something like that.
One off the United States.
So the question is, why? Why do we have now? Because it's like subdivisions. Subdivision they got subdivided. But according to the Torah, there's 70 real, fundamental nations in the world. But the truth is, right, there's really 72.
But these are what we should call voting nations, ones that make
voting nations. Okay, I got you. Okay, so what I mean to say is the 72. You know why 72? Because we have 70 nations altogether. Where is that delineated, by the way? In Parashat Noach, right? Over there in Noach, it lists all the nations over there, right? But we have also two more, right? We have Ishmael and Esav. These two nations are considered to be not part of the 70. You know why? Because they come from the Jews. They come from the Jewish family, from Avraham Avinu they come from. You understand? So therefore they're considered to be like a little bit separate because all the other nations don't come from our people. There's a different root there. But these people, since they came from our family, so therefore they're considered to be like two more on top of that. And by the way, these two more, it's very relevant to the whole thing. Why? Because they say in the Chazal, right, that who leads these nations? Who are the leaders of these nations, the 70 nations? Esav and Ishmael, right? There's a verse in the Psukim, right, in the Tehillim. We say this every day when we come to Shacharit, right? After we finish the Amidah, we say, right, Ele barechev ve'ele basusim, right? So, what does that mean? That is talking about the times of Mashiach, right? That nations are going to come and attack Am Yisrael. They're going to come attack us, all the nations together. All the 70 nations together are going to come to attack.
That's what's happening.
Right? By the way, we call that war Gog and Magog, right? Gog and Magog. If you take the numerical value if you take the numerical value of the Gog and Magog, how much does it come out to be? 70. Right? Every the Jewish tongue has numerical value for each letter, right? So you wanna count it up, right? Gimel is how much? 3, right? Vav is 6, right? Gog, so not Gog is 9, right? Umagog, right? Vav is 6, Mem is 40, right? And then Gimel and Vav and Gimel altogether comes out to be 70. So now, what does that mean? That Gog and Magog includes all the 7 nations will come against us in the war of Gog and Magog, the final war. All the nations will come against us. But on top of those nations are Esav and Ishmael. They're the ones who lead these nations. Right? What does that mean? That 30, right, we said 70 nations altogether, 35 are led by Esav, and 35 are led by Ishmael. That's the way it is. Right? How do we know that, by the way? Ele barechev, ele basusim. What does that mean? Ele, the word ele, what is the numerical value of ele? 35. And then ele, another ele, 35. So we have 35, right? And then we have Ishmael and Esav. So altogether we have 72. That's what the verse is saying. All these nations will come against us in the final days when Mashiach is revealed. Once they see Mashiach is revealed, they'll all come against us.
And we're going to win.
You betcha. You
On
betcha.
our side, right?
Right? So now, so it's guaranteed, right?
So
It's guaranteed.
we already know the outcome. What do we have to worry about?
You know what? The only thing you have to worry about is to be on the right side. You don't want to worry about the wrong side. That's the idea. Okay. Run for Torah.
You're going to suffer in between.
Okay.
Right? You're going to suffer in between.
Right. Okay. So you got the idea, right?
Between now and the end times.
So okay. So we now right. They come against us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to all these nations. Right? He told them, you want it? So he came to Ishmael, right? And he offered the Torah to them as well. So the Ishmaelim, what they say when the Torah Hashem offered the Torah to them? The Ishmaelim are very religious people, right? They're very traditional. They keep their customs. They keep their you know how they are, right? They're very traditional people. So Hashem said, you should want the Torah. It should be good for you, no?
Excuse me, can you explain to me what does it mean? He came and he offered, right?
Just like he offered to Israel, just like we're going to see right now, right? They came to Har Sinai. The Jews were sitting there. He told them, do you want the Torah or not? Do you want to keep it or not? Do you want
He brought the Jews to Har Sinai.
Moshe Rabbeinu brought them, right?
All right.
But he brought them, and then he offered it to them. They had a choice also to resist also, to reject it also.
And to the other nations, God spoke and says, here's my
Yeah.
daughter.
Here's my Torah. You want it or not? He told all the nations like that. So what happened was, right, he came to Ishmael, and he told them, he said, you guys are very religious people, your ladies cover their hair, the men, have beards and all kinds of things, and you pray 4 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever, God knows, whatever it is, right? So we should want the Torah. It should be good for you, no? It should be very fitting for your character. So the Ishmaelim asked, right, the question to Hashem. They said, what's in there? Can you give me an example? Like, give me a rundown. What's going on there, right? So it says, don't steal. Do not steal, right? Lo tignov. It says in the 10 Commandments, right? We're going to learn about that now. So Ishmael said, no, I don't want this business, right? Why? Because, we're yado b'kol yad kol bo. You know what it says, right, about Ishmael, right? That his hand is everywhere. What does that mean? He's stealing all the time, grabbing,
So how were they observant people then?
They observe, but they steal also. You understand? By the way, you should know.
That's like
You should know, by the way, that in Israel, if you go over there, you see, right, that the workers over there are, the ones who are Ishmaelim. They usually steal. You have to be very careful when you bring them to work in your house. You got to watch them all the time. Why? Because they, they're very quick with their hands. They have very good hands. Those guys.
What about on the farm?
You understand? Same thing. Yeah, whatever it is, right? So Hashem told them, don't steal. So they said, no, this is not for us, because we like to, we like to tread in foreign waters, in foreign fields. Right, yeah, we like to do that, So this is not for us, I'm sorry, but this is not our piece of cake, whatever. So they rejected it. So then it came to Esav, He came to Esav and said, don't, you want the Torah or not? You guys are very smart, very, very technologically advanced, very intelligent, you guys are brilliant people, Esav. Right? You see how brilliant they are, right? You see how brilliant they are. They're so amazingly smart, that nobody's smart like them. So he told them, you guys should want that because, the Torah is a very smart thing. You're going to enjoy learning how smart the Torah is. You guys are very smart. So they asked Hashem, they said, what's in there? Can you give us an example? They said, don't kill. They said, no, we cannot accept that, right? Because we're killers, you know what I mean? Esau was, he was a killer, he lives by the sword, right? That's what it says, right? He lives by the sword. They said, we can accept that, right? We have, in New York City, we have 2,000 murders every year, We can't accept that. In America, we have 25,000 murders every year. We can't accept that. That's not our lifestyle, We're killers, We're handgun people, We have Second Amendment people. You know what I'm saying? We shoot first and ask questions later. You know what I mean? That's what we do. That's what we are. So we can't accept that.
But then again, I don't know if the Torah brings this up, but they could have accepted the Torah and just not kept those things.
Right, but they don't want that because they don't want to be punished. That's what they, understand? They don't want the responsibility.
That commit murder and steal also.
Right, but you can't compare. These guys.
They'll tell you what, I'm a Jew.
Right, but these guys, what I'm saying? Go. By the way, you should go to Israel and see how many murders are there committed by Jews, and come here and you'll see. Right, it's like what the difference is between here and there? About maybe 500% of what goes on here goes on there. You know what I mean? Jews they're not really killer people. You know what I'm saying? Jews don't usually kill. Once in a while, you get a murder. Once a month, once a year. Whatever. Once every 2 months.
We had a lot of.
It's not really, it's not really something very common. A Jew kills another Jew. You know what I mean? The Jews are very peace-loving people. They like to, they're family people. They're peace-loving. They don't like to kill. They don't like to, to get their hands dirty, with blood and all kinds of stuff. They're not interested in that.
We are the world.
So, right, exactly. We are the world. So, right, this is so therefore, right, Esau also rejected. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, what happened was that he said, okay, now the coast is clear. I can offer it to the Jews, That's my favorite people, are my chosen people, the ones I love. So he said, okay, you know what? Let me offer it now to the Jews. So what happened was, right, the Jews came over there to Har Sinai. They left Egypt, right? By the way, let's just get the chronology right, in terms of the dates, because they left Egypt on Pesach, right? On the first day of Pesach, right? That's when they left. That's when they were redeemed. So when did they get to Har Sinai, to the Mount Sinai? How long did it take them, right? This was the 3rd month after they left Egypt, right? Which was on exactly when did they receive the Torah? On Shavuot, right? Which is the 3rd month after Pesach, right? 50 days to be, if you want to be accurate, right? It's 50 days after Pesach. That's what it is. So they 50 days they were in the wilderness, and finally they got to Har Sinai. Where is Har Sinai, by the way? Just want to know, right? For the geology, right? The geography. So where it is? It's in the Sinai Peninsula, which is where this is actually the Israel, government. They conquered this in one of the wars with Egypt, right? The 6-day war, I think it was. They conquered the Sinai Peninsula, and then they gave it back.
Right.
So that's where they received the Torah over there. It's technically in Egypt, right? But it's like a peninsula which is separated from Egypt. Geographically speaking, it's a little bit separate from that. It's like a triangle. That's why I call it peninsula. Peninsula means it's a triangular shaped land, right? It's called peninsula. It's triangle.
So it's surrounded by 3 sides of water.
Right. So what happens is like this, right? That you have this peninsula, and through this peninsula, it's really five sides. Whatever. Doesn't make a difference. It's not really 3 sides, right? Okay, whatever. Right, exactly right. So you have this thing, the peninsula, 5 sides. So what you have over there is like this, right? That this land is technically speaking in Egypt, but it's like also halfway to Israel as well. You know what I mean? In terms of distance.
Halfway to it.
Right.
There.
Right. It's not in Israel. It's in Egypt, technically speaking. So now what happens is like this, right? But it's not the main part of Egypt. It's like more like the outskirts. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to tell you. So the Jews are over there. It took them 50 days to get there, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu now, right, sees them. Oh, okay, they're here, right? So when did they get there to that area? It was Rosh Chodesh Sivan, right, which is the 3rd month after Nisan, the 3rd month. On the new moon, they arrived there and they camped there, right, for several days. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down to Moshe Rabbeinu and he told them, he said, listen, now you guys are going to receive the Torah, so get ready for everything. Because it's going to be a big show. It's going to be
fireworks.
Right, a lot of fireworks over here. It's going to be a lot of, it's going to be the most impressive thing you ever saw in your life, right?
Trump 2020.
Hollywood production, right? Times 50, right? Whatever, this is going to be something amazing. So he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, listen, make sure you tell them two main points over here, which is what? Once, right, they get close to the mountain, not to touch the mountain, not to trespass over, because if they do trespass, they're liable to death on that. You know what I mean? Because it acquired a sanctity. Once Hashem's presence, right, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rested on that place, so Hashem said, nobody can come up here anymore now. That's it. This is like restricted area.
You're talking about Mount Sinai?
Right.
Well, that's in Saudi Arabia.
No, this is in just what we just described now, right?
I know, but
Sinai Peninsula, right? That's why it's called Sinai Peninsula. Sinai. That's the idea, right?
Leads to the mountain.
That's where it is. It's there, right there in that place. So now, right, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's in Egypt. That's where it is, right?
Mount Sinai.
Yeah, it's in Egypt.
Saudi
Yeah,
Arabia.
it's technically it's not in Saudi Arabia. It's Egypt. Even today, it still belongs to Egypt, right? I looked it up. Believe me, we looked it up many times. So now comes right and comes the Kadosh Baruch Hu and tells Moshe Rabbeinu. One thing, tell them, don't get close to the mountain, right? Make it for them a border. Don't come up there. Whatever it is, right? The people, the animals, nobody can come up there. Whether it's livestock, that's number one first thing.
You can tell
Number two,
you know how you can tell the mountains,
yeah.
right? They're black on top.
Okay,
Like
so
burnt.
number two, right? Now comes, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu tells them another thing, which is what? That don't be with your wife, right? No relations for 3 days before the receiving of the Torah. So you have to separate from your wife for 3 days.
No
To be in sanctity, Everybody's in sanctity. Right, mikveh, this, whatever. Everybody's going to be pure. Right, why, by the way, I want to ask you, right, why 3 days? What's the reason why? You understand why this
3
is?
days to get clean?
Yeah, why? Why is that? Why?
I don't
What's
know.
the reason why?
That's me.
I'll tell you guys a secret, right? It's
You
not
got
really a
soap?
secret, but, for people who don't know, it's a secret, whatever. So,
You gotta tell
the
us.
reason why you need 3 days
Uh-huh.
is because there's a rule like this, right? That when a man lives with his wife,
Yeah.
okay? So, the sperm goes inside, right?
Takes 3 days before it.
There you go, right? There you go. Mark already caught it, right? He caught it, right?
Takes 3 days before.
So what does that mean? That once a person lives with his wife, it starts to drip out from there,
Yeah.
It drips. Drip, 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 drip. Okay, so what happens is like this, right? If it drips out of the body,
Charlie, change
Right?
the sheets.
if it drips out of the body, what happens? The woman becomes tameh, she becomes impure. Once it comes out of her body, it becomes impure because semen is impure.
Or it'll die.
So therefore, right, makes anybody who touches it makes him impure. So the fact that it comes out of her body makes her impure because she's touching it now outside of her body, right? That's what's
Right.
happening. So therefore, They had to wait 3 days. Why? What's the reason why? Because once you wait 3 days, even if the semen comes out after, it's already like putrid. It's not semen called semen anymore.
Died
It
already.
rots.
It died.
It rots. It becomes putrid. You understand? So therefore, it doesn't have the designation of semen anymore. This is the reason why they had to wait 3 days. So they had to be 3 days without their husband. Why? Because just in case, right, something comes out, it should be already after 3 days, and then it's okay. This is the reason why they had to
You
do
gotta
this way.
sleep upside down.
Okay, I got you. So now, right, comes Moshe Rabbeinu and speaking to Hashem, and Hashem tells him, okay, I want you to go down to the people, and tell them, I'm giving you the Torah now. Do you accept this? Because I'm going to make you my beloved nation, the chosen people. Is this acceptable to you or not? They had to accept it. You know what I mean? That was the whole idea.
It's a good thing.
So, question is, do you want? If you don't want, you don't want. By the way, what would happen if they don't want? You know what happened, right? The whole world would be destroyed,
They give it to Africa.
right? Everybody already rejected it. So there was nobody else to give it to. You know what I mean? Who are you giving it to? The kangaroos? You're going to give it to, right?
Somebody else,
You're going to give it to the cheetahs?
The Aborigines.
Right? Who are you going to give it to? Nobody else is enough anymore. They all rejected it. The only one that was left is Am Yisrael. So Kadosh Baruch Hu told them, you're interested? You're interested? If you're not interested, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to destroy the world. Because the whole purpose of the world was to give the Torah. Understand? If that purpose is not fulfilled, Kadosh Baruch Hu has no purpose for the world. Even for Audi, for Mercedes, right? That's not the reason for the world. You know what I mean? Even though they're very nice, but that's not the reason why. The reason is because the Torah should be given to Am Yisrael. If otherwise, the world cannot exist. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu told them, you want or you don't want? Tell me now. That's it. So Moshe Rabbeinu went to the people, and he explained to them these things. And when they heard this offer, right? Offer you can't refuse, right? Whatever, yeah. So, what did they say, right? The famous thing, right? They said Na'aseh v'nishma. What does that mean, right? Which is something really weird, strange. They said, we'll do and then we'll hear, right? What does that mean? In other words, we'll do what it says, and then, afterwards we'll also understand the depths of all these things, right? All the philosophy and the logic and,
We'll follow you
right, right, exactly, right. First, words we'll blind, and then, first we'll put tefillin, and then we'll learn what tefillin is for. You know what I mean? But first we'll put it.
Sure.
We'll circumcise, and then he'll teach us why we're circumcising later on, some at a future date, some future time. So what does that mean? That the Jewish people, the uniqueness of the Jewish people was what? That they didn't ask, what's in there, if it's not good for us, we won't take it. You know what I mean?
They were forced to accept.
We're going to talk about that just in 2 minutes, right? We're going to talk about that issue. So, right, what happened was that they went blindly into this. Blind faith, right? They had right. It sounds familiar, right? They went blind faith into this thing. They said, why did they do that? By the way, it sounds kind of like foolish, whatever. So the answer is the reason why they went into blindly is because they knew who they're dealing with. Hashem is a perfect, being. He's a creator. So whatever He gives us must be good. In other words, what I don't have to, there's nothing to analyze there. You know what I mean? Right. Whatever it is. Okay, it may be hard, maybe difficult, it may be painstaking, it may be very exacting. Right, it may be a pain in the neck, whatever. Sometimes,
So they went about it like Obamacare. First they implemented it, and then they read it.
Okay, whatever. So, tell Trump about that.
Yeah.
Explain that to Trump. Okay, so
because Farrakhan told the world that Obama was the Messiah. So
oh God.
they figured whatever.
Lord. Okay.
Whatever he implemented.
Well, at least he's not. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Right?
So what happened was that the Jewish people, right, had this thing where they said, Hashem is perfect. Everything He does is perfect. He's the one who created the world. It's like you buy a product that was created by some manufacturer, Mercedes, this and that, whatever.
Geoengineering.
So you have the instructions over there, So listen, it says, this is the person who made this car. They know what they're talking about. If you don't follow their instructions, so whatever happens is your fault. Don't blame it on anybody else. You don't want to follow the manual. You know what I'm saying? They tell you, listen, this car only uses premium gas. You want to put regular over there. You know what I'm saying? Don't put regular. Why do you want to play around? They say to put synthetic oil. You want to put natural oil. Why do this is synthetic oil? The manufacturer knows what has to be done with the car. They're the ones who made the car. You know what I mean?
It works better.
So that's the whole thing with Hashem. He made us, so He knows what we need. You know what I mean? So there's nothing to argue about. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wait, let me think about that. Let me delve into it first. Let me delve. What's there to delve into? What's he want to delve into?
He engineered us.
Yeah, He made you. He fashioned you.
Right. He gave us chromosomes.
He made you. So what are you asking about? What's there to ask? It makes sense to me. Who cares if it makes sense to you? Who cares about that?
This is what He wants you to do.
He's a manufacturer. You know what I mean? He created you. So that's the Jewish people see we're smart. You see, that's the smartness of the Jewish people. What does that mean? They know how to get into the depths of something, get to the bottom of things. The Jews understood that. They said, listen, what's there to talk about over here? Like, But the thing is, that why did the Goyim reject it? You know why? Because the Goyim, their whole prerogative in life is to stay with their nature. That's the way I was made. I can't change. Right? I can't change. There's all kinds of, what I'm talking about, right? I can't change. That's the way I was. Like, there's all kinds of things like this, that you hear. Like I was made to be a gambler, I was made to be, a womanizer, you know what I mean? I can't change. That's the way I am. I was born like that, But Hashem tells you, no, that's the whole point, I made you to change. I made you to change yourself. You know what I mean? I made you to alter yourself. I made you to improve yourself. Don't come and tell me you can't change. So if you want to tell me that, you're Esav. Esav says I can't change, So God, please forgive me for everything. That's it. I can't change.
It's automatic.
It's no good. It's not the way. That's not the way of the Jewish people. We don't hold like that. You understand?
It's automatic that you're gonna change.
Yeah, exactly. You have to change. There's no way. If you don't change, so you're gonna wind up in the gutter. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
But be careful. You're talking about evolution now.
Evolution. Okay.
Right? Changing.
You have to change. You have to. That's the whole point. You have to go against your nature. You have to go against your will. Right. Well, that was the whole thing, by the way. What separated Avraham Avinu from all the other people in the world? Because Avraham Avinu, right, was willing to kill his son, even though he loved his son. He went against his nature, He was a loving person. He was a kind person. He wasn't a killer. He wasn't a murderer. He wasn't a cruel person. He was full of kindness. But nevertheless, in order to do the will of God, he was willing to go against his nature. Which is, this is the Jewish people in essence. You understand? We got this from Avraham Avinu. That's our root. We said, listen, we can do it. Whatever you say, we can do. We'll worry about that later. What's in there, why, the philosophy, the logic behind it, and this, how it works, the depths of all this, the secrets, all kind of the mystical stuff.
Rabbi,
But that's about the bottom line.
Something quick. Did the Jewish people, how we're always blamed and mocked that we think we're the best and we're the chosen. Meanwhile, they want to kill all the infidel because we won't convert to. And the hypocrites, the Christians and the Muslims, accuse us of thinking we're the chosen, as though they don't think they're the chosen.
Right, they don't think
But
we're
forget
the chosen.
about this.
Right.
Did the Jewish people become God's favorite people after we accepted the Torah and everybody else did it, or we already were?
Well, the truth is, that Avraham Avinu already proved that we had the potential to do all these things. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that we had the potential. Now it was just a matter of fulfilling the potential, technically speaking.
He's
what I mean? Avraham Avinu was the root of the whole thing, right? That was the whole thing, right? Avraham was the root. So now, right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them, okay, you want this? Okay, fine, you want it. But you know what it is? Now we're getting to this point, right? So what Jimmy said, that it was forced on them, That's what the Chazal say, it was forced. So what was forced? What are we talking about? We just said, right, the Jews accepted it willingly, right, with loving kindness, they accepted this whole thing. So what was the force over there? Who forced them, and what forced them?
Holding on to his head.
So what they say, right? The answer is like this. The answer is that regarding the written Torah, they accepted it, with a blind faith. They said, okay, here, this is the Chumash, whatever's written here, we accept. It's only, 5 books. It's not so much, we can probably finish it in 2 years. We'll be expert in all the laws already. That's it. So it's not so bad. We can deal with that. But next Baruch comes and tells them, he says, wait a second. That's what you think the Torah is? Just the 5 books of Moses? There's also the oral Torah, You have 60 tractates of Mishnah, 30 tractates of Gemara, Midrashim, Zohar, Kabbalah, this, Halacha, ba. So, Kadosh Baruch Hu telling them that you have to accept that too. That's also part of the Torah. You can't. It's a package deal. You understand? You can't take this without that. It doesn't go like that. So he told the Jews, "Do you want to take that too, the oral Torah? Do you accept that?" So the Jews are like, frightened. Like they almost like fainted when they heard this. It's like, oh my God, we have to learn Talmud. We have to learn Halacha. We have to learn Midrashim. We have to learn Rashi and Tosfot and Rashba and Ritva and this, all this. He said, "My God, this is too heavy. What? When are we gonna be able to live a normal life? Watch some cable TV. Surf on the internet a little bit. Have some, go to Dunkin' Donuts. Whatever, hang around a little bit. Some leisure time. Go out. Go dancing a little bit. Boogie woogie. What? When are we gonna have to do that? All this?" So Hashem told him, "No." He says, "You're gonna be my priestly class of people. Right? You're going to be my priests. Every one of you is a priest. What does that mean? All of you have to be very religious, very devout. Very devout people. We don't have amongst you people like that, half and half, 50-50. No, you got to be all the way with me. So you have to study the oral Torah. So that the Jews didn't want to accept, and then what happened was, right, as we're going to see over here, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked up the mountain on top of them, right, when they were on the heels of the mountain. He raised it up, right? Once he saw that they were hesitating about the oral Torah, so he told them, you were hesitating, huh? I see. Okay. So you know what? I'll show you now who's boss.
Yeah, fix your way.
Yeah, right? So what he did was he lifted up the mountain, right? And he inverted it like this, right? So it became like what? Like a big tub, This was a gigit. It's like a big tub, like a bathtub, whatever. So it looked like a big tub. So he told them, he said, you know what? Here's the mountain. You see it over your head? There it is, right? There it is. Okay, very good. You accept the Torah, the oral Torah or not? If you don't accept the oral Torah, right, you're going to be buried right here. I'm going to bury you right here under the mountain. I'm going to make this thing fall on your head, right? You're all going to be history. It's going to be one big gravesite over here. That's what it's going to be, right? It's going to be one big funeral parlor. Wow. So the Jews said, okay, if that's the case, okay, we'll take it, but they did it begrudgingly, you know what I mean? This was begrudging. They said, man, this is too much, but what can we do? It's better than dying. Yeah, they said, okay, it's better, we want to live. So, okay, what can we do? We'll take it. Yeah. But they felt, really like they got a raw deal. You know what I mean? They got a raw deal. So they like, how these, their faces were cringing, like this. So this, by the way, this point had to be rectified. This whole thing. What does that mean? What had to be rectified? That this, to accept the Torah like this is not really the proper way to do things. You know what I mean? This is a joke. It's fake. It's it's coercion. Mm-hmm. So what kind of business is this, right? So the truth is, we're coming now, right, to the holiday of Purim. Today is also Purim Katan.
Okay.
As we said, right? It's very fitting, by the way, for this. Why is that? Because they say that how much time passed between the beginning of the Torah and the holiday of Purim? How much time passed? Of the Torah, right? And the holiday of Purim. How many years passed between these two things, these two events? The giving of the Torah and the holiday of Purim, Esther. The Queen Esther, all these things. How much time passed? Any idea? It was about 1,000 years. Right?
1,000 years? You said we're only on the earth for 6.
That's it. Got it? So what does that mean? That the Purim story was when? Was at the end of was it right before the building of the second Beit HaMikdash? That's when it was, the Purim story. So what happened was, right, that at that time, Kadosh Baruch Hu still, had this issue with the Jews. They said, you accepted the Torah begrudgingly, the oral Torah. No good the way you guys did this. So now I'm going to teach you a lesson, right? I'm going to bring Haman, right, which is like a, Hitler, kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? The same kind of character. So he said, Haman is going to teach you a lesson now, right? He said, what was the decree that Haman made? To exterminate all the Jews. That was the decree that he made.
Amen.
Right? So what happened was that the Jews got so scared, from this extermination thing, right? What happened was that once they were saved from this, Kadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle for them. So they accepted the Torah Shabbat Peh. They say at that time, the oral Torah they accepted willingly, with happiness. They were all happy, Said, we were saved. So finally now, right? It took them, can you imagine, 1,000 years to accept the oral Torah really willingly. 1,000 years it took. It's unbelievable, right? And even then he had to use threats.
Miracle.
This was like threats, He was threatening them.
So it's never too late for me then. I have 1,000 years.
I wouldn't rely on that too much. Okay.
Not in this neighborhood.
Not this neighborhood, right? So now, right? Very good. So Jews finally accepted the Torah, the oral Torah as well. But now at this point, it was begrudgingly. It was like coercion. Anyway, let's get back to the actual 10 Commandments and see what's in there, right? So what happens like this, right? Now, as the Torah is being given, this was like the biggest show that ever was in the earth, right? Lightning, shofar, big noises of shofar, fire, right? The earth was quaking,
Trumpets.
Smoke. The whole mountain was smoking,
Earthquake.
Yeah, it was like total mishmash, This thing was like something for
Volcano.
sight for sore eyes, right? Volcano times 50, It's like something unbelievable.
Made Mount St. Helens.
Everything, the whole mountain is quaking, lightning, all kinds of things going on, smoke, fire, this and that, and the noise.
The devil.
This was something unbelievable. So Moshe Rabbeinu went up there to the top of the mountain. He told them to come up, Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he started to say the commandments, the 10 Commandments, right? So the first commandment was what? I am the Lord your God, who took you out of Mitzrayim, took you out of Egypt, right? What's the reason why he said this terminology, right? I took you out of Egypt. What do I need this for, right? I'm the Lord your God, right? The fact that he took us out of Egypt, we all know. Everybody knew that. So what he's trying to tell me something new? Tell me something I don't know.
Freed you.
You know what I mean? Tell me something I don't know. I took you out of Egypt. Thank you very much. I already knew that.
Well,
we just left there 50 days ago.
Freed you from slavery.
So why? Yeah, right. So why did he say that? What's the reason why, right? The reason is because what? the Chazal say is he wants to tell him like this, right? You were slaves in Mitzrayim. You weren't slaves over there, right? I took you out, but on condition that you become my slaves now, right? You become my servants. I didn't take you out to become free people, just like, free, do whatever you want. No, I took you out from there, from the house of bondage, but now you are my servants. It's not like now you're free, do whatever you want.
The one we can't
Doesn't work like that.
The one we can't see was slaves.
That's what I told them. You understand? I took you out of Egypt. If it wasn't for me, you would still be there now.
Threat.
So therefore, right? Get ready. Get used to this concept that you're not a free person. You can't just do whatever you want. You're under my authority.
But when do we come free?
Huh?
Do we ever come free?
Who's gonna become free? So now, right? Tells him like this. That's number one, right? I'm the Lord your God. And then, right, later, right, at the second commandment is what? That you should have no other gods besides me. So, the question is like this, right? Why do you have to tell them the second one? It seems like a pretty much, extension of the first one. If you're the God, so then obviously I shouldn't have any other gods besides you. There's no other gods.
It's a footnote.
You know what I mean? So what is that? What is the second commandment? What is it telling you? So what the rabbis say about this, right? They say it's coming to tell you like this, right? I am the Lord your God. But don't think you can, also have other gods as well, on the side, some like to make like a combination, Trinity, this kind of thing, this side, the bottom, the left, right, all kinds of things like this. No, you can't serve God through some intermediary like the Goyim do. You should have no other gods besides me. I don't tolerate any other god. To have some kind of like a partner there, some kind of this and the kind of. I don't want any partners.
Not only do they have an intermediary, but they actually call him God.
Yeah, sure.
They call him God.
Yeah, so Hashem is telling you. So what do we learn from there? We learn from there, by the way, two very important things. For the Jews to serve the God through an intermediary is not allowed. Hashem, right, takes that as offense. Don't combine no other gods over there. I'm the only one. There's no other God. Even though I created angels, I created all kinds of things, right? And by the way, this concept of son of God, son of God. We're all sons of God. The Jewish people are all sons of God. That's what it says. We're all sons of God. We're all His sons. So nobody can say I'm the son only. What do you mean you're the son? We're all sons of God. All the Jewish people are sons of God. Why are we the sons of God? Because we accepted the Torah. Once you accept the Torah, you're a son. Meaning what? That He says, my son, you go my way, in my ways. You don't drift around and, go in this way and that other way, to make me angry, to anger me, to give me a headache with your head, your cause of headaches. No, you go in my way. You're my son. So the Jewish people are the sons of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's true. But in terms of gods, there is no other gods. There's nothing else. There's one God. So meaning what we say, right? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. For the Jewish people, this is the most important thing. The oneness of God. Right? There's only one God. He is omnipotent, omnipresent, right? And nobody besides Him. There's nobody else. Yes, there are angels. Yes, there are all kinds of things which help Him, and they do their bidding, the bidding of God. But these are just robots. You understand? They're just programmed to do the bidding of God. They're not gods themselves. You know what I mean? So Jews, they're not allowed to believe that there's any other power there which works together in conjunction with God. It's some kind of independent entity. This is a very big no-no.
No partner.
You understand? But now the second thing, right? Which is what? We learn from here also that the Goyim are allowed to do that, you see? The Goyim are allowed to combine something else with God. In other words, they have to believe in God. They can't be idolaters. Even they have a provision for idolatry. But if they want to put somebody else there, with God, as like some kind of helper, some kind of, whatever, what do you want to call it? Catalyzer, right? Some kind of catalyzer guy. So that they can do, the Goyim. So the question is, why can they do it? It's not really true. There is no other God. So then why are they allowed to do it? What's the reason why? You know why? Because they're on a lower level. The problem with the Goyim, they have a problem. The problem is they can't fathom a God which is like has no body, has no shape, has no body, has no mustache, no beard, no hair, no eyes. It's all spiritual. So for the goy, to understand this is like very hard. They can't relate to that because they're on a high level, not on the high level like the Jewish people. The Jewish people can do that. They can relate to a God which has no body, which has no,
But the Muslims also believe in straight.
Right. By the way, you should know it's true. It's true what you're saying.
Yeah.
Regarding that, they're good. They're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're good. But also what the Christians do, that they say, oh, Yeshua, the Yeshua, this guy, the kind.
Yeshua.
Okay, so Yeshua, okay, they have their Yeshua. It's not really true these things, but they're allowed to do that. You know why? Because what happens is that they have a hard time relating to a God which has no infinite. It's not finite.
Physical entity.
Right, they need something like
Beautiful.
right. It just helps them. It helps them to come. The truth is, you should know, by the way, that the Muslims, what they did regarding monotheism was only recently, in the recent times, about 1,000 years, 1,500 years. Before that, they were also idolaters. The Muslims were also idolaters. You know what I'm saying? Monotheism in Islam was only introduced about 1,500 years ago. Before that, they were all serving idols as well. So in the times that the Torah was given, everybody was serving idols. There was no exception. The only really ones that were monotheistic were the Jewish people in that time. So what happened was that then they the Islam to advanced whatever, and it got to the point to where they started to do monotheism, right? But the problem is, right, that nevertheless there's heresy there, all kinds of false
Did
things.
they really have a prophet, or it's as phony?
The Torah
as,
teaches us, right, that the last prophet from the Goyim was Bilam. After that, there was no prophecy. Right? Bilam was the last prophet of the Goyim. The reason is because Bilam, he caused so much damage to the world, because he said all kinds of false things to cause people to sin. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu took away prophecy from the nations.
Where did he come from,
Bilam was from Aram, right? He was actually from the family of Avinu, because Lavan, right, was the uncle of Yaakov. He was the cousin of Yitzchak, right? So what happened was that Lavan's grandson was Bilam. So he also came from that family, you understand? But he wasn't a Jew. Okay, whatever.
So then, what do you call Muhammad is a false prophet?
Yeah, I mean, not only is he not a prophet, he wasn't a righteous person. He was a wicked person. He was a sinner. He was a killer. He was a murderer. This guy. He was a cold-blooded murderer.
But he did exist.
Oh yeah, he existed. Yeah, he existed. No question about that. We see that he existed, right? And he killed a lot of people also. He killed a lot of Jews also, by the way. He killed a lot of Jews. He was a murderer. He was a cold-blooded murderer. So, he never repented, believe me. He never repented. He never did any tshuva, believe me. There was no remorse there, no nothing. So now, let me tell you something interesting, right? So, therefore, right, the Goyim are allowed to serve God with an intermediary. And therefore, we don't really have such a big gripe with the Goyim about this, what they do. Right, we don't have such a big gripe with them regarding that.
We don't accept it.
Right, but we don't really care about their gripes. You know what I mean? I'll tell you why. Because I want to tell you two things about that regarding their gripes. Number one, it's actually a very good thing to have gripes on us. You know why it's very good? Because it's a test. We're being tested. You know what I mean? So we pass this test, we ignore their gripes. That gives us reward. That Kadosh Baruch Hu is testing us to see if we're really loyal to Him, even though the nations ridicule us. You know what I mean? So it's actually something very good that they gripe. They have gripes with us. That's number one. But number two, also, what I'm saying, their gripes for us, doesn't really mean much. You know why? Because their gripes come from their own ideas. They don't come from God. So what do we care? See, that's the whole thing, right? The basic difference, what we learn over here about Har Sinai, what we learn is that the Har Sinai was not with one person. It was with the whole nation over here. You know what I mean? How many people stood on Har Sinai and saw God? It was 2 million people at least, if not 3, right? So we're not talking, 2 million people,
Everybody that went to Mitzrayim.
Right, exactly. How do I know, by the way, 2 million? How do I use this number? You know why? Because there was 600,000 foot soldiers in the army. That excludes people who are under 20, over 60, right? Because they were not in the army. It also excludes women, right? So if you add all these things, we're talking about 2 million people approximately. You understand? 2-3 million people. So who saw God? All those people saw God. They heard God. So what happened was, right, that God, when it comes to the first 2 commandments, He Himself spoke them to the Jews. The Jews heard Him. Why did He do that, by the way? What's the reason why He did that? Because He wanted that the Jews should have an impression of what God is, how He sounds. That they shouldn't say, Moshe Rabbeinu, he duped us, He got duped by Moshe Rabbeinu, He pulled some kind of trick. some magic trick, Copperfield, Moshe Rabbeinu was Copperfield. He pulled some tricks on us. He ventriloquized him, He ventriloquized the voice of God, this kind of thing,
You remember when your brother tells his husband, when he turns the staff into the snake?
Right.
Hollywood.
My people are not impressed, Moses, by a cheap magician's trick. You remember?
Yeah, what was that
So-
guy's name? The chief magician. What was his name?
So therefore, what Kadosh Baruch Hu did was like this, right? He told the Jewish people, listen, he told Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm coming down myself. I'm not sending any emissaries over here. No agents. I'm coming myself to speak to the people. There should be no mistake, right? Don't make any mistakes over here. So what are we talking about? We're talking about God Himself who came down to speak to the people. 2 million people. This is not just one epileptic, some guy, who has dreams at night, and wakes up in the morning, I have a dream, I have a dream, something like that, right? Yeah, you have a dream, okay, but what has that to do with me, Okay, I also have dreams, but my dreams, I don't tell people about my dreams. So
And
what do you?
And then when he gets caught with a hooker, doing what he does, he comes out on the next show and goes, "Forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned."
Okay, that's very good, very good. I like
Remember
that.
Jimmy Swagger?
Very good imitation. Very accurate. Okay, very good.
Bakers?
Nobody does like David.
Rabbi, have you ever seen a bad imitation from me?
No. All of them are right on the money. Right on the money. Okay, I tell you.
Don't tell me you actually remember that moment with Jimmy Swagger.
Remember the Bakers? Remember the Bakers?
The Bakers.
Oh, yeah. Big.
So Rabbi,
You were baking cakes.
what happened was, right, that
Tammy Faye, yeah.
so the first two commandments that we're talking about now, right? I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods besides me. Hashem spoke this to the people. They heard God, Himself.
Is it besides me?
And you know what happened when they heard God? Every one of them, right? They say they died. They died, people. What does that mean? I have to explain to you what that means, right? They were so scared. They were so frightened, startled by the voice of God, that their souls left them. They couldn't tolerate that. It was too heavy for them, Too heavy. So what happened was, right? Their souls left, and they went back like this. They were like totally blown away. I mean, this is not a regular thing. You understand? This is not a human being.
That was a great invitation.
So their souls left them,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, right? Once the two commandments were stated, so then all of a sudden their souls came back. Kadosh Baruch Hu revived them, right? This was like revival of the dead. It was Ketamitim.
They passed away on each commandment or on the second commandment?
When they first heard the first two,
First
they
two, and
they
then on
they
the
were
second.
done. They're cooked. They were
Second.
cooked. That's it. They were cooked. You understand? They got cooked. So what happened was that now, right? They were revived by God. God revived them. How did He revive them? By the way, they say, right, that also the revival of the dead, which is going to be in the times of Mashiach, is going to be the same way. He brings like a dew, like a moisture of air, dew, and that dew comes down and revives the dead. That's exactly what He did to them. So what happened was like this, right? Now they got revived. So they heard the first two commandments. They told Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, listen, excuse me, but this is not for us. This is too heavy for us. We can't tolerate this thing. If we hear more of God talking, we're going to be finished. We're going to be out of business.
Why
You know what I mean?
It's good. They would get revived again.
Right, but it seems like it was too much for them. Shock. Shock factor. You're shocked. It's like this is no good. I mean, what do you want us to do? To die? What do you want us to do? We can't hear. We can't listen to God. So they told Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, listen, go to God and ask Him, please, that you can say the rest of the commandments. We don't want to hear any more from God. That's enough. We heard enough already, as it is. Dayenu. Dayenu. That's it. Enough for us already. So Moshe Rabbeinu went up to God and he told him. He said, listen, that's what they say. They don't want to hear your voice anymore.
Poor guy.
Right?
Right.
So, you know what God tells them? He said, they're right. Okay, they have a good point. Listen to what they said. The rest of the commandments you should say. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu agreed to this. He saw that this was not, this is not something realistic. Every person who utters something, you're gonna die. What's the point? So what happened was like this, right? That ask you a question, right? Why did this happen? We have the natural course of events, as we said. But why did Hakadosh Baruch Hu wanted to say the two first commandments to the people Himself? This is exactly, in actuality what happened. You know why? Because he wanted these two commandments, right? I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods besides me. He wanted this to be very deeply etched into the soul of the Jew, Nobody can remove that. Because once God says that to you, it becomes imprinted. You can't get it out of you. It's just not possible to get it out anymore. Understand? So this is the reason why, by the way, that the Jews, even though they do other sins, when it comes to these two sins, most Jews don't sin on this. Even the ones who don't observe mitzvot, they don't observe the Torah, they're not religious, they don't keep Shabbat, they don't keep kosher, they don't keep black kosher, they don't keep this. When it comes to these two things, every Jew, it's etched in his soul. I am the Lord your God, and thou shalt have no other gods besides me.
Oh, I see.
Understand? So this is why, right? All these goyim, right? They've been trying for thousands of years, to convert us into their idolatry. You know what I mean? Do this idolatry, do this, worship this idol. It's been going on for thousands of years, with different variations,
But
right?
for some reason we stick to this.
Right, we stick to it.
It's a hang-up.
Why? Because it's etched in us. Once we heard these things from God, we can't get it out of our system anymore. It's totally, it's a part of our essence.
Yeah.
We can't get it out. So, but all the other commandments which were said by Moshe Rabbeinu, that can be played with. That you can play with that stuff. You know what I mean? But when it comes to these two things, the Jew can't get it out of his system. You know what I mean?
Can we all be saved just because we all keep that?
So the truth is, right, that a Jew who just, because he didn't worship idolatry, he has a portion in the world to come just because of that.
That's good enough for me.
You know what I mean?
You can go home.
That's it's an amazing thing, That he didn't accept idols.
Mark, you can eat the shrimp that you bought today.
That we didn't say, right? We didn't go that far. But what I'm saying is that if he wasn't able, if he had a tragic life, he had a tragic Jewish life, not exactly what he was supposed to be, but nevertheless he kept these two things. That shows that he has a Jewish soul, inside of him.
Rabbi, I've met people,
Yeah.
concentration camp survivors, people in their 80s, 90s, they denounce God. That they say, after what I saw there,
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
believe that any
Yes,
God
yes.
would let that happen.
Right. And by the way, these people
And by the
are
way, a lot of them came from observant Jewish homes.
yes. But I must tell you, right, that people who say these kinds of things, I don't like to say it, but I don't think that they come from the right place. These people, their souls are not from what we just talked about now. I don't think so, to be honest with you, because a Jew never gives up God. No matter what happens. Even though he has like a big sword on his neck, about to cut him open, he still says, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That's a Jew. When a Jew doesn't have that quality, that shows that he's flimsy. Flimsy.
When he's going to get something, he's a Jew, right? Right?
So you get the idea, right?
Make reparations.
Okay, so let's go through, right, all the others. We don't have a lot of time. So let's go through. I don't want to keep you guys here all night. If you want, we'll keep you all night, but
No, we have another.
It's not possible.
You started 20
Okay. So third commandment is, right, not to make graven images, right, to make idols, to make statues. So these things we're not allowed to do, right? You always, right, when you go to the house of worship of the Goy, right, he always has statues there, This statue of this guy, this lady, some animal, some fish, some kind of whatever. All kinds of, right, unicorns, this kind of thing, right? They do the statues because they, as we said, right, again, the whole point of the statue for them is like to associate, godliness with some kind of physical, thing. Because they have a problem just associating God with nothing. They want to have some kind of physical shape.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Lamps and furniture have these deities in them.
Right, okay, I got you.
Even the Rambam says
Right.
it was their destiny that he came.
That's something else. We're going to talk about, that's a different issue. But what I'm saying is like this, right? That a Jew, though, is not allowed to have any of these statues, whatever. They're very, very important halakha. So therefore, this is the reason why, right? You're not going to find, you go to shul, right? You're not going to find a statue of Moshe Rabbeinu, even though it may be very innocent, to see, Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Or a statue of Yaakov Avinu, we don't have statues like that. Even though we don't mean idolatry for that.
Moses
we just mean like as a shrine, whatever, some kind of a honor, whatever. But we're not allowed to have shrines like that, anything like that. We don't have any statues. So therefore, right, in a Jewish place of worship, right, the most important thing you're going to see over there, no statues there, because that's not our way, right? We're commanded by God to have no statues, no graven images like that, right? Whatever it is, animals, human beings, stars, this, sun, moon, all kinds of things.
Worship or
Anywhere, right? Anywhere.
At home we have some statues, but they're meaningless statues. It's
Right, but to be honest with you, these issues, right, in halakha, there's a discussion about these things, right? There's a discussion about this. Sometimes it's allowed, right? Depends on how it's made and so forth and so on. But what I'm saying is like this, right? The reason I'm discussing about the shul, you know why? The reason I'm saying about house of worship is because if you put a statue in front of you, that means like you're kind of like praying to it, right? That makes it even worse. You know what I mean? So that's like it's a red line for us. You know what I mean? We don't. By the way, also in a shul, in a synagogue, you're not even allowed to have a picture of somebody like when you pray in front of you. Like a rabbi. Some rabbi. Who you praying to? The rabbi? What's it? Putting the rabbi in front of you? Okay, you can have maybe in the back. The rabbi's picture. But not in front of you, like you're bowing down to him, whatever. This is not allowed to. You're not allowed to bow down to any rabbi. What it was? The rabbis, he's flesh and blood, for God's sakes.
Right?
You know what I mean? So what?
I can't even have a portrait of you in my apartment.
You can have a portrait, but don't pray to it.
You don't have his picture.
Pray to God. You know what I mean?
There he is.
So you got the idea, right? You got the idea. Okay, so this is the third commandment, right? What is the fourth commandment? Shabbat, right? Exactly, right. So this is an interesting thing, right? Shabbat,
Sabbath day, holy.
it tells you, right, that it uses two different languages. The 10 commandments are stated twice in the Torah, right? Once in the book of Dvarim and once over here. So each one says Zachor, right? Remember the day of Shabbat. The second one says Shamor, right? Doesn't say the same language. Keep the day. Shamor is to keep, to observe, right? So we have two different things, right, on Shabbat. To remember it. What does that mean to remember it? To make kiddush, right? To certify with a kiddush, with a cup of wine, to bring in Shabbat, and to certify. Now it's Shabbat. When it comes in and when it goes out, Havdalah, right? When we make Havdalah. When it goes out. So this is how we remember Shabbat, by bringing it in with a ceremony, with a right, and also taking it out with a ceremony. Kiddush and Havdalah, right? This is the idea. Right? Shamor means to guard yourself against the 39 labors, right? That's what we're talking about, right? By the way, it says, right, you should do your labor on the fixed 6 days, and the seventh day you should rest, like God did, right? So where do we learn what's a labor or not, right? Some people think it's because of exertion, you exert yourself a lot. It's not the issue. Doesn't really mean, doesn't have any, there's no connection with exertion, right? So where do we learn the issue of labors? Which labors are forbidden, which labors are forbidden, and which labors are permitted also? There are some labors which are also permitted as well. So where do we learn that? From the Mishkan, right? What does that mean? Chazal tell us that whatever was done in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, right? This was the place of worship that they made in the desert, when they went out to the desert, like we're talking about now. This was a little bit later on, right? After the Torah was received already. So that tabernacle which was made, all the labors which were done over there, the 39 labors, those are labors we cannot do in Shabbat. Those are the labors we cannot do, right? And then for a person, if he really wants to keep Shabbat, he has to learn these labors, what's forbidden there. This is the way, right, the person understands the right how to save himself from the forbidden labors of Shabbat. Okay, that's number 4, right? Number 5, right, Jimmy, we talked about this before with Jimmy, right? Honoring your parents. So, we had a discussion about this with Jimmy when he came, that, was this number 5 or number 6, right? Remember we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
So Jimmy was insisting it's number 5. So, you know what it is? There's a little bit of a problem with this, though, to accept this. Why? I'll tell you what. Even though it's true. It's true. But the truth is, right, the Chazal tell us that the first 5 commandments are between you and God. The second 5 commandments are between you and your fellow man. Right? So therefore, you would think that it should be in the second part, honoring your parents, because it's between you and your parents. You know what I mean? So why is it in the first part then? Number 5. What's the reason why? So you know what the answer is? The answer is that really, you honoring your parents is not between you and your parents. It's between you and God. In other words, God tells you to honor your parents, regardless of if they're nice, they're not nice, they're good people, not good people, they're sweet, they're not sweet, they give you a big headache, they're very hard on you, they're very harsh, they're very demanding. Right? Nevertheless, even though they have all these qualities, still you have to honor them. Why? Because God tells you, listen, don't try to make it into some kind of rational thing, like your parent is your friend or something. That's not what it is. Your parent is not your friend. So, with a friend, it's like if he's not nice to you, you find a different friend, I don't like this guy, give me a break. This guy's giving me a hard time all the time. Always, chiding me, this, putting me down, insulting me, right? All kinds of stuff. Cursing me, God knows what, right? Putting evil eye on me, he puts evil eye, He's very jealous of me. He eyes me, whatever. So, but with your parents, all these things doesn't matter. Whether they treat you, fairly in a bad way, you still have to honor them. Why? Because God told you to do so. It's not a rational thing. It's not between you and your fellow man. It's between you and God. Why is that? Because Kadosh Baruch Hu says like this, right? I created you, but who was the partners? Your mother and father, right? 3 of us created you. They fornicated, right? They made you, they fashioned you. I was there also, right? I helped them to do it, otherwise it wouldn't be done. We're all 3 partners to make you, to create you.
What if you're a miserable human being and you hate them for creating you? you feel you should have never been created.
Well, that needs. I think you need a psychologist maybe for that.
Rabbi,
It's-
when you were saying something about putting them down and stuff,
right.
you reminded me of Chafetz Chaim. I don't know if Jimmy remembers. Gocha always constantly used to ask the Rabbi Katz, Rabbi, why are you always putting me and David down like this? For some reason. And this was the Rabbi's response. Because you're defect, that's why. You remember?
That's what I said. Okay. I think there was a mistake to talk that way, by the way. You shouldn't talk that way to people. You know what I mean? With all due respect, you shouldn't talk that way to people.
Mm.
You have to be, even if a person, by the way, is a defect, let's say, you shouldn't tell him he's a defect.
Yeah, but you
know what I mean?
What we were doing over there.
Okay, yeah, no, I
That
understand.
was after I left. Hold on. That was after I left. I graduated.
Okay. You have to be, very merciful with children. You have to be very, very, very patient with them, because it takes some time, to become mature. So that time
The
where they're
brain
wild.
doesn't- According to the Me Too Bowel movement, the brain doesn't develop until you're 28, 29.
Right. So, just one that we skipped on, right? To utter the name of God in vain, right? They're not allowed to utter the name of God in vain. That includes, by the way, several things. It includes, right? I'm sorry?
We skipped.
Right. So, the uttering the name of God in vain,
What number is that?
this is, the first one, as we said, right, is I'm the Lord your God.
Yes.
You should have no other gods besides me, number 2. Number 3, don't make statues, right? So, where is this? Probably comes later, right? Let me just make sure. So we shouldn't have any
Number 6 or number
misconceptions,
9?
right? One second. I'll just make sure. Right. So this is actually before, right? As we skipped it, right? As we said, right? It's after to have other gods, right? Then comes, right? This one. Don't bear the name of God in vain, right? Don't yisad Shem Adonai l'shav, right? So,
What number is that?
so you see, these things are, the truth is, right, that they're concentrated here. You understand? In other words, the first one, right, and the second one, and then the third one is includes several things. The third one. So this is one of the things that it includes. We skipped that. You understand? That's what I'm trying to say, right? The third one includes also this. Don't utter the name of God in vain. So what does that mean? Okay, so then we have to say, right, that those two first are, you're right, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. The way is like this, right? The first one is, I'm the Lord your God. No other gods besides me. And making graven images, right? So it must be included,
The other part.
right, in the second one. Right, yes. So the third one is Lotisa, right?
Don't make any images.
No, the third one is, so we're saying like this, right? The first one is, I'm the Lord your God. Don't have any other gods besides me. So making statues and, right, this issue is all one. With no other gods besides me. Because you're making, why? Because when you make a statue, there's another god there you're putting there. You know what I mean? So this is all in one, right? And then Lotisa, right? Which is what? Don't utter the name of God in vain.
That's in the other part.
That's number 3. You understand?
If you say so.
That's the way it must be. Check me up on that, right? If I'm wrong, we'll
The
correct
Chumash
it.
is right here.
Right here, right. But it's not,
check.
see, the problem is like this. The Chumash is right here, but it's not numbered. It's not numbered. So you have to use your judgment, right? So that's my judgment is like this, right? The first one is, I'm the Lord your God. You have no other gods besides me, and right, that includes also to make graven images, right, and all these things. And then comes Lotisa. What does that mean, right? Don't the other name of God in vain. That's a separate one. So regarding that, right, regarding this, we have to understand a little bit what that means. That a person is not allowed to swear in the name of God in vain, right? To make a false oath. This is what we're talking about. So meaning what? That in those days, right, today maybe not so much, but in those days when a person used to make an oath, he used to make it in the name of God. So therefore, when you make it a false oath, you're using the word of God, the name of God in vain. That's the idea, right? There's also another thing, which is called Shuvat Shav, which is also similar to that. Which is what? That you're saying something which is actually not false, it's true, but you're saying something which is obvious, so there's no reason why to make an oath about that. Something everybody knows about. So why are you making an oath to use the name? Because you're using the name of God in vain. This is also a problem. You know what I mean? You're saying something which is obvious. It's true, but why are you using the name of God to make an oath which you don't need to make? So therefore, this is also called. What that means is that I'm swearing. Like for instance, I swear to you, right, that this synagogue is Georgian. You know, everybody knows that. So this called a vain oath.
But just because you say I swear, that's already vain.
Something like that. That's the idea. You understand? Right? That's the idea. Right. You're swearing. So what does that mean? That's called an oath in vain. So when you make an oath in vain, it's true what you're saying. It's a Georgian shul. But everybody knows that. I mean, it's obvious. So why using the name of God to say something which is obvious? So using his name in vain. That's the idea. So there's two different things, right? One is to take a false oath, right? I swear, I didn't double park, but you did double park. Excuse me, I'm sorry, but it's a false oath using the name of God. That's one. Number two is also something which say something was obvious. Everybody knows that. So why are you using it for? For the name of God, for no reason. That's also number three, right? According to many Rishonim, according to Rambam and the Rif, there's also number three, the third facet over here, which is what? That a person who utters the name of God in vain, in a blessing, right? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu, but this blessing he didn't have to make. It was, he didn't need this blessing. So he's making it just, for fun, Oh yeah, I think I'll make another blessing now, Like let's say you take an apple, right? Okay. So I make, what's the bracha on that? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz, right? Now Yasha now brings me a pear, from the fridge. He tells him, okay, here's a pear. Okay, so I'm going to make another bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. This is no good. You made the blessing in vain. Why? Because this bracha you made, the first one, already fulfilled the obligation for this one as well.
So it's better not to make a blessing than to make.
You're not allowed to, right? In the case like that, it's extra,
In that case, according to the yeshiva, you didn't have the pair in mind.
Right, but even if you didn't have it in mind, but it was there, it was there in the place.
There.
Right.
Yes, you just said yes.
That's something else. If it wasn't there, they brought it from somewhere else, and you weren't expecting it. So then there's room to make another blessing.
We're
not talking about that.
Watermelon, then a pear.
Right. So let's say you're home, right? You're sitting in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Okay. So your wife, brings you this, then she brings you that, and then she brings you a third thing. But all these things you had in your house, So I mean, you cannot make another blessing because it's one eating. You're sitting one down, one eating. So that's called a blessing in vain. So this is also a prohibition. It's included in the prohibition.
I'm sorry for being so specific.
No problem.
She brings it to you, or you go up and
same thing, doesn't make any difference.
You went to a refrigerator.
You know why I'm saying that she brings it to you? Because let's say you weren't expecting to eat that. But she decided to bring it to you, Still, you shouldn't make another blessing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's the idea. Because it was in the house. Okay. That's it. It was in the fridge, right? Whatever. Okay. You got right? So why make two blessings, right? For the same eating, So therefore, you only make one, right? This is the idea. So this is not in vain. Right? To say God, name of God in vain. We talked about the issue, shortly of Shabbat. Then we're talking about the Kibbutz Avim, right? Respecting your parents. I just want to say one more thing about respecting your parents. It has a lot of details, by the way, this mitzvah. But I want to tell you, right, that the issue of respecting your parents, they say it brings you longevity, right? What does that mean? It gives you long life. If you treat your parents with kavod, they lengthen your days, even though your days were not supposed to be so long. But now they bring you more. They give you a bonus, right? You get extra time. Right, so Jimmy's going to be doing pretty good, I think. I think he's going to be doing pretty good. We're going to be seeing him for a long time, Jimmy. God bless you, Jimmy.
Hope you're not going to get tired of me.
We're never get tired of you. Okay, so let's go on, right? We're talking about Kibbutz Avim. So then, after we talk about the issue of honoring parents, right? What's the next in line? Right, then we have the three big ones over here, which are the prohibitions. Right, these are like cardinal sins, So what does that mean? Lo tirtzach, lo tin'af, ve'lo tignov. What does that mean? Don't kill, right? Do not commit adultery, right? And don't steal, right? So all these things, what they have in common, all of them are liable to death. These things, right? Adultery is liable to death, right? But what about stealing? Stealing is liable to death. So here, right, the Chazal say the reason why it's liable to death over here is because you're talking about kidnapping, about stealing a person, right? It's kidnapping a person. When a person kidnaps a Jew, he's considered to be liable to death on that, So therefore, this is also liable to death. So all these things are liable to death. Lo tirtzach, lo tin'af, right? Adultery. By the way, regarding adultery, when is it considered to be adultery according to Jewish law? Only if the woman is married, right? It doesn't not consider to be adultery if the man is married necessarily. If the woman is married, it's going to be adultery. That's the idea, right? But if she's single, even if the man is married, that's not going to be adultery according to Jewish law. Even though it's a sin, maybe a sin.
Isn't
but,
the man
yeah.
forgiven
I'm sorry?
by Jewish law?
Nobody tucks out their sins under the rug. Everybody's going to be punished for the sins.
No, what I'm saying is...
Adultery, right?
Yeah.
Adultery. So we said, right, adultery only applies to a married woman. The sin of adultery.
Jimmy, you're
If the
out.
woman is single, does not apply, right? The last one we're going to say, right, before Jimmy leaves, is lo tachamot, right? What? Not to covet. What does that mean? To be jealous of people, to want their property. I want Jimmy's car. I want David's car. I want Mark's car. I want his wife. I want his children. I want. You know what I'm saying? So this is the most important thing over here, right? This 10th commandment, by the way, it doesn't involve any deeds. You're not really doing anything. You just want. You want something that a person has. You want to have it for yourself.
Possessions.
Right. So this is considered to be also one of the 10 commandments. Can you imagine? So therefore, a person has to be careful, right? No problem.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank
Take
you.
your thing out here.
All right,
No
all
problem.
right.
So this is the 10 commandments over
I
there.
think there's a provision still for man. I heard
Yeah.
that if a man cheats on his wife, in other words, a family should not be broken up with that.
Right. It's true. It's true what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gemara says like this, right? That when a woman is cheating,
Yeah.
the family will be broken.
Yes.
That's the nature of
Yes,
right?
but if
The
a
man is cheating, it doesn't necessarily have to be broken. No, not necessarily. It doesn't break the
Is that
family.
chauvinistic?
It's just a fact, Just that's the way it is.
Because it's actually giving you a leeway to commit adultery.
That doesn't mean that it's permitted.
No, it's
right.
not
What we're
permitted.
saying is that it won't break the family, right? It won't necessarily break the family, right? So that's different discussion in itself, right? But what we're saying is, Rabbi, that a person also, we see from here that jealousy, envy, things like this are coming to the category of this last commandment. So a person has to be very careful, not to want other people's things, not to be jealous of them, thinking about what they have, how much money they have in the bank. The grass is always green on the other side. You know what I mean? This is the kind of thing.
If the other commandments can actually be kept, because most of us, thank God, don't kill.
Thank
and
God.
don't steal. That last one is basically God is asking man to cut out his human nature. That's human nature.
Well, that is human nature to be envious, right? It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. But, if you really think about it, though, I want to tell you, right? We'll finish off with this. That it's really very, very silly and very foolish to envy other people. You know why? Because Chazal teaches us, right, that everybody has a destiny in this world. Everybody has a mazal.
Yeah.
So what
It
your
won't
destiny,
change your
right? Exactly. It won't change your destiny. You can't have what that person has.
Yeah.
You can't take it from him. It's not meant for you.
You just eat your heart out.
Right, exactly. So
know?
there's nothing positive there. All you do is negative, right? All you do is kill yourself. You remove yourself from the world, right? It says in Pirkei Avot, right? That envy removes a person from the world. That's what it does.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that removes a
So,
person.
Rabbi, are you telling me that that Halakha says, because according to Halakha law, a woman that cheated on you and she was with somebody else,
Yeah.
you can't sleep with that woman anymore.
Yeah, if you know about it, you have to divorce her. Yes.
Now, are you telling me that Halakha towards men says that yes, it's forbidden, he shouldn't do it, but if he does it, it's okay for him to go back to his wife?
Sure. I'll tell you why that is. You should know.
Well, I'm sure they came up with.
I may get slack for this. But you have to speak the truth. You know what it is? That men, by nature, are capable of being with more than one partner. But women are not so capable of that. What does that mean? One at a time. Like when she's with this one, she can't be with the other one as well. In other words, the woman is not, just has looks in one direction. You understand?
Unless she's in the porn industry.
That's something else.
Yeah.
That's business, right? But when it comes to like emotional attachment for a woman, she can only be attached to one person at a time. So this is the reason why for them it's a little bit different. This whole thing. It's the nature of the person.
Yes.
The manufacturer knows the nature. He knows the nature of people. That's the way it is.
The halakha is not so much hung up on that she physically slept with somebody. So are you telling me if they didn't have the nature to be attached with one person at a time,
right,
then it would actually allow you to go back to your wife?
Well, it's that may be true, right? That may be true. But anyway, the point is, right, that going back is not allowed, but that only applies when the man knows about it.
Right.
But there are cases where he doesn't know, and then sometimes it may be permitted to stay like that. You understand? There are cases like that too. it's a whole discussion in itself, right?
What,
We
what
can talk about that in
what you
the.
don't know won't hurt you? Is that what
Uh,
I never knew that quote was from the Torah.
Okay, I guess we'll stop here, guys. Thanks for coming. God bless you.
We're waiting for Jimmy to come back.
Okay, very good. We'll wait for him. Meanwhile, we'll